Thanks very much, and thank you, Chika, for welcoming us to your country. Thank you, Angela, for your warm and fulsome welcome. Thanks, Scott, for the comments that you've already made, and thanks for also encouraging everyone to vote on their favourite potential swimming spot on the river. I'd obviously also encourage you to vote for your favourite local MP, John Sidoti, but I better not do that. But anyway, it's been terrific working with John, who's a very, very strong advocate for the health of the Parramatta River and for his local community around the bays of Drummoyne. But ladies and gentlemen, we know that the Parramatta River has a long and proud history. We know that it was central to the society and culture of the Aboriginal people. We know that it was a vital artery and lifeline for the fledgling colony more than 200 years ago. But over the last 50 or 60 years, we've somehow turned our backs from the river and seen the river more as a spot to dump our pollution rather than a place to enjoy and love and celebrate. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to turn our faces back to the river. And it's fascinating to see with urban renewal the sorts of projects that are now developing right along the river that have changed the face of the river from something that was just used as a dumping ground to something that is now celebrated. I remember talking to some old boys who used to sail 18-footers in the harbour, and apparently they used to see many sharks that would follow because the abattoirs up the river, who would follow the 18-footers up the harbour, hoping someone would fall overboard, because the situation of the river in those days was so dire. It had been polluted for so many years that it was really just it was smelly, it was discoloured. We've come so far already, but it's clear that there is a lot further yet to go. We've just heard from Scott in relation to the massive effort that was done during the days of the Greiner Liberal government to put in those deep ocean outfalls and clean up the beaches. And there were those very famous concerts, the Turn Back the Tide concerts, the start of the Beach Watch and Harbour Watch programs, the establishment of the Environment Protection Authority, and this huge focus and hundreds of millions of dollars spent on cleaning up the ocean outfalls at the heads of Sydney. It's now time, ladies and gentlemen, to turn that focus inland and look at our rivers as well. Because what we know from the engineering effort and from the community effort that brought those enormous changes in water quality along our city's ocean beaches, we know that we can manage the same wins if we're prepared to have the same focus and same effort on our city's principal artery, a maritime artery, which is of course the Parramatta River. That's why I'm delighted to announce a few separate programs, and there'll be more, obviously, as Angela indicated. There's much more that needs to be done. But there are 3 point sources that I want to talk about and what we're doing about them already. We know that there's a need to address pollution on this waterway through soft engineering, through hard engineering, and also through dealing with the point sources of pollution. Soft engineering is things like restoring our wetlands so that they flush flows into the river effectively. That's why I'm pleased to announce that a re-elected Baird Liberal government will bring a new $5 million urban habitat rehabilitation fund. This is $5 million in additional funding over the next 4 years that will be targeted to projects to restore wetlands, to restore riparian corridors, to restore those precious bits of bushland that lead into our urban waterways, and none is more crucial than the Parramatta River. The second thing we need to look at is hard engineering, and that's where big funds are required, but that's where the New South Wales government stands ready to work with local government and to fund those efforts. $40.2 million will be spent over the coming decade in terms of dealing with wastewater overflows. These are areas when the existing sewage infrastructure is full, that there are points in the system that just overflow and diluted sewage runs straight into waterways. $40.2 million will be spent in identifying and fixing those wastewater overflows. The other point we need to deal with is the sewage infrastructure itself. And I'm pleased to say over the coming decade, there is $86.6 million that will be spent specifically on the sewage network to deal with those pollution risks to the catchment. And then there's the final, and this is the biggest single cost, and that is the stormwater system itself. More than $500 million, ladies and gentlemen, will be spent in the coming decades to partner with councils in the sorts of work that needs to be done to improve our stormwater system so that when we get wet weather, the discharges into our waterways are clean, so that we've got the gross pollutant trap, so that we've got clearly identified connections that don't connect in with the sewer to make sure that flows of water into our catchments are clean. The final thing we need to do is deal with the point sources of pollution, not just sewage, but also litter itself. A third of our litter stream, ladies and gentlemen, is cans and bottles and beverage containers. Through the introduction of a container deposit scheme, we'll create for the first time an incentive for people rather than to dump this sort of rubbish, but actually to pick it up because they'll get a financial incentive for doing so. We know that that will clean up a full third of our litter stream, and a lot of that litter ends up in our precious waterways. So there's a few of the tangible things the New South Wales Government is committed to working with the community to realise this ambitious but fully achievable vision of making the Parramatta River swimmable by 2025. We know that many parts of the river can already be swum in, but there's a lot left to go. The exciting news is we know we can do it, we know that the community want us to do it, and we know that with the engineering capacity and with the community will, this will be a vision that can be achieved. So thanks all for coming, and please continue to support this terrific initiative. Thanks a lot.